الموضوعة لهذا اليوم تحمل عنوان منظومة اجتماعية جديدة توائم عصر التكنولوجيا، تكشف عنها روكسان ميدوز، وهي مديرة مشروع فينوس. مديرة مشروع فينوس ستكشف النقاب عن منهجيات تسخير الإمكانيات التي تقدمها العلوم والتكنولوجيا لإحداث تغيير إيجابي في نظامنا الاجتماعي، ونشوء أيضا منظومة اجتماعية قائمة على أحدث الابتكارات الاجتماعية. إذن رحبوا معي بروكسان. Please welcome on stage.
Hello, I am honored to have the opportunity to speak with you today, and I want to thank everybody who made that possible. Arthur C. Clarke was a scientist and science fiction writer, and he said that if I say something that everybody understood, I would be saying nothing new. So bear with me, because I am going to be talking about something new called the Venus Project and a resource-based economy. The Venus Project is a holistic socio-economic system that's unlike anything that's gone before. It's not communism, it's not socialism, it's not fascism, and it's not capitalism. But it does have the potential to address most of our problems at their root cause. Jacques Fresco was the founder of this organization, and he was a multidisciplinarian. He worked in many different fields, designing aircraft, hundreds of medical devices, cars, boats, trains, and all the way up to homes and total city systems. But he is most noted for his design of a resource-based economy, which we will get into later. When Jacques was in the 1950s, Jacques also was creating special effects for Hollywood movies. And he used to do space stations in outer space and rockets that would go to the moon, and people would come up to him and say, "You'll never see that, not in 1,000 years. And he would say, "Oh, you work with rocketry?" "No." "You study propulsion?" "No." He'd say, "Then where do you come off with all these opinions?" Today, most people are brought up with the belief that everybody should have the right to their own opinions. But when you walk into an aircraft, you don't go up to the pilot and give him your opinion for the ground speed needed for that plane to take off. That's accumulated through data over many different test flights under various conditions. It's not the opinion of the passengers or even the pilot, but the data collected. We at the Venus Project feel that this scientific approach is much more reliable. Why science? Because we do have space stations in outer space, and we do have probes that go to Mars and beyond. And in the palm of our hand, we have knowledge of the world through the internet. Because science, better than any other process, works as a system, a better system than we know of, than any other system that we have today. But the way we manage society has very little to nothing to do with the scientific process. We live in dangerous times, and even some are saying to potentially our own extinction. And decisions that we make today can literally address this, have a potential of affecting the survival of millions of people. But don't get me wrong. Don't when it comes to operating society, we have never turned to scientists and said, how do you design a society without any booms and busts, without any war, without any poverty or hunger or homelessness? I wanted to mention, too, that we can achieve a sustainable future if we continue to use outmoded methods of social operation. Today, our problems are technical, but business, banking, law, politics, and militarism take precedence over technologies that can give us clean sources of energy, efficient transportation, safe housing, and other infrastructure that can give us a high standard of living for potentially everyone on the planet. When it comes to operating society, as I mentioned, we'd never turn to scientists. But don't misunderstand me. I'm not talking about scientists running things, because they're raised in the same culture with the same values as most of you and I have. Einstein once said that nationalism is an infantile disease, that it's the measles of mankind. And he knew firsthand just what could happen when scientists are misused and made nationalistic, patriotic, and competitive. But what is significant about scientists are the methods they use to solve problems in their own particular discipline. They do this through verifiable evidence, not opinions. The Venus Project wants to apply the methods of science to the social system for the betterment of all people. And decisions would be made through statistical data, from statistical data for the intelligent management of Earth's resources. Now, to keep the free enterprise system going, or the capitalist system as it's called, or the monetary system, we have to continuously buy and sell things. Jeremy Rifkin wrote the book, The End of Work, where he acknowledges just how quickly technology is displacing people's jobs. And industry is forced to do this in order to compete. It's much cheaper than growing abroad for low-cost wages. But there is a problem with this that people are writing books about and talking about. And that is, when enough people are displaced, they don't have the purchasing power to buy the goods turned out. That's just one scenario of the end of the free enterprise system. From the year 2000 to 2016, in America, we lost over 4 million jobs to technological displacement in the manufacturing sector alone. I can understand why people are afraid of technology. Very often, it means surveillance. It means technological displacement. And depending on where you live in the world, it can mean drones and thousands of bombs. I'm pretty sure we all know that it's not technology that's the problem, but the misuse and abuse of it that is. And people have no clue as to what to do about the onslaught of automation into the social system. Bitcoin won't take care of the problems. We, sadly, have no unified global direction to strive for. And this is what the Venus Project has to offer. The Venus Project upholds that if we are going to survive the enormous global challenges that we are facing, we must eventually declare all Earth's resources as the common heritage of all the world's people, and as expeditiously as possible outgrow the artificial boundaries that separate us. We advocate using science and technology to the social system for the betterment of all people and the protection of the environment. in order to achieve this, we have to update the way we operate society and make all goods and services available to everyone without a fee and equitably. Many say, well, this is just impossible because of the ominous human nature that we can't exceed our destructive tendencies. But this is a myth because we're not born with greed and bigotry and hatred and envy. We acquire those attitudes through the culture that we're raised in. There is no such thing as human nature. There is human behavior, and that's always changing. Otherwise, we'd still be roaming the deserts as nomads and roaming the forests. We don't realize to what extent our values are imposed upon us to support whatever culture we're raised in. All countries do this. All children pledge allegiance to whatever country they're in, and they're told that their country is the best. How else can they get them to go to war for them? But whose interests do our values really serve? The control is so subtle that we don't even feel the manipulation, and we believe that the way we think and our values and our behavior come from within us. They don't. They're given to us. We are just as lawful as anything else in nature. For instance, a plant doesn't grow. Our language is so sloppy. A plant doesn't grow. It's acted upon by nutrients and sunlight and water and gravity, bacteria, and many other things. It doesn't do anything on its own. If you put a seed in a vacuum, nothing would happen. And this is the same with people as well. Outside influences act upon us. Imagine taking a newborn baby and putting it in a gray dome without any outside influence, without any verbal communication, without any stimulation whatsoever. And you could feed the baby, keep it alive, keep it clean, and then let it out at 14 years of age. What do you think that child would be like? It's horrifying to even think about it. We are always acted upon by many interacting variables. The books we read, the movies we see, the internet we view, our friends, our teachers, our role models, our parents, our religion, and the subculture that we grow up in. Every decision that you make is based on your background. I know probably some of you are thinking of your genes. Well, your genes do give you the shape of your body, the color of your hair, your eyes, and your skin. But your genes don't give you a value system. They don't give you a method of determining what is significant and what is not. That comes from experience only. All of your notions of good and bad and right and wrong, what's criminal, what's ethical, and even what's beautiful, come from your culture. And unfortunately, we can't exceed our environment. To further understand this, if you drove a car on a straight and level road, but it pulled to the right, you would probably take it to a mechanic, and they'd look for the malfunction. It had to be something. Something caused the car to pull to the right, the alignment, the wheel balance, the tire pressure. It didn't do it on its own free will. But we don't examine human behavior in this way. We don't look for the physical factors responsible for behavior. We're not taught to do that. Why? Because it doesn't serve the interest of the monetary system. For instance, they may put a man in jail who cuts the horns off of a rhino just to feed his family, but they don't look at what it is in society that allows his family to go without food in the first place. That's the real question. It is much easier to blame the individual than look at what it is in the environment that that person is subjected to. There are no good people, bad people, lazy people. There's an environment that's acting upon people's behavior. Behavior is caused. That's very important. I want to repeat that again. Behavior is caused. If we want a different type of behavior in people, then we have to look at what it is in society that is causing that behavior, that shapes our behavior and our actions. Let's examine some of those conditions. It is often taboo to talk about money and its circumstances, but let's face it, we are all selling ourselves and chiseling off of one another, and it causes greed, corruption, and a lot of stress. If you think about it, it's really not money that people want. That's right, it's not money. What they want is access to the goods and services that that money brings. Money is an interference factor between what you need and what you're able to get. It's a made-up construct, and it doesn't even represent resources. And it leaves people and entire nations in perpetual debt. It often causes wasted lives compared to what we could have. This fantasy called money, which, granted, once was a driver of prosperity, has now outlived its usefulness. It limits our dreams and limits our potentials. Our practice of rationing resources through monetary methods causes tremendous, unnecessary suffering and environmental degradation all over the world. And with the threats we're facing today, it's counterproductive to our very survival. We are plundering Earth's resources, poisoning our air, our food, our water, and ourselves for profits. Consider this. If you were stranded on an island with gold and diamonds and jewelry and suitcases full of money, but the island had no fish, no arable land to grow food, and no clean water to drink, you would have nothing to contribute to your survival. What is most important is resources and their intelligent management and their distribution. Our monetary system, or all monetary systems, still operate with contrived notions of scarcity. If it rained gold, people would take it and hoard it in their attics and in their basements. But if it continued to rain gold for over a year, they would shovel it out into the streets because it would have no value. Just like if apple trees grew all over, you couldn't put a price on an apple. We only put prices on things that are scarce. We don't have guards on the deserts to make sure that people don't come at night and steal a cup of sand. The air we breathe is tremendously valuable. We die without it. But we don't monitor how many breaths people take because it is so abundant. What the Venus Project advocates is to organize and engineer societies to create abundance as quickly as possible. With our automated technology and our scientific personnel, we could create a world where scarcity no longer exists. Then we could arrive at what Jacques Fresco conceived of as a resource-based economy, where all the goods and services are available to everyone without money, barter, credit, servitude, or debt of any kind. Think about it. This would be the end of stealing, of envy, of greed, and a lot of corruption. These traits are not inborn. They are generated or caused by our old, antiquated cultures. The Venus Project is introducing an extremely different type of society, one that is dedicated toward human need. And the aim is to maximize quality of life for everyone rather than maximize profits. In a resource-based economy, we would live within the carrying capacity of the planet. In order to determine this, we would have to take a global survey of our resources, technical personnel, industrial plants, but mostly the needs and the health of the people. Can you run that? That's a little too far into it. Can you make it go back? The priorities of the Venus Project are to feed, house, clothe, and provide a high standard of living for everyone on the planet as quickly as possible. In order to achieve this, total city systems would be built that conserve resources and use energy efficiently. It was far less expensive in terms of energy consumption to build new cities from the ground up than to restore and maintain old ones. The Venus Project cities would operate as a living, breathing organism, just like the human body. If you get an infection in your toe, you don't have a democratic committee meeting that goes up to your head and says, we're going to do a 3-month study. By that time, you have gangrene up to your waist. The human body works as a symbiotic process. Everything gets whatever it needs, whenever it needs it. And this was an inspiration for this new social design. People from many different disciplines would design 1/8 of the city and then duplicate it. Instead of wasting the potential of architects, each designing separate buildings, separate windows, separate different doors, different windows, different moldings, it's really chaos and very expensive in terms of resources and maintenance. Prefabricated architectural elements could be produced in automated factories and assembled on site. I'm not talking about every city the same, but each unique according to their function and their location. They would be immersed in beautiful parks and gardens. They would use the best of clean technology in harmony with nature. And the cities would emphasize the restoration and the protection of the environment. To us, at the Venus Project, technology without human concern is just so much junk. It's meaningless. When we unleash science and technology directly into the social system without the interference of money, there would be no limit to the human potential. Imagine all the labs and different disciplines working together to solve problems that are common to everyone. And they wouldn't have to worry about losing the competitive edge or violating a patent. And everything produced would go right back into society for everyone's use without a fee. The standard of living would go up exponentially. Even the wealthiest of today would live better in a resource-based economy. There is really no security for anyone until everyone has access to their needs and is cared for. We must reorder our social aims toward one unified planet, working for the well-being of all people and the protection of the environment. The individuals or nations who take this on will be at the forefront of real sustainability to ensure that we do, in fact, have a future. As it stands now, many people find this questionable. I would like to take a couple minutes to talk to you about what we are working on for implementation. At our 21-acre center in Venus, Florida, we have built 10 buildings, have over 400 scale models of the future, produced many schematic drawings and blueprints, and literally have over 5,500 design sketches that Jacques Fresco created to help depict many aspects of this new social direction. And to further depict these ideas, we produce books and videos. But what is really encouraging are the large numbers of supporters that we have from all around the globe, and the numbers are growing daily. Our nonprofit organization, called Resource-Based Economy, is working with our teams of skilled professionals to develop a new self-sustaining project. It's called the Center for Resource Management. And in it, we will depict many exhibitions of the future to help people understand the potential of science and technology when used humanely within a global resource-based economy. The Center for Resource Management is dedicated to furthering these aims, and everything developed will be scaled up for the first city, and then another, and they will operate as much as possible within this new social direction, meaning they will share ideas, share knowledge, and share resources without a fee. We consider the Center for Resource Management to be humanity's living lab to help design and usher in a real, sustainable future. We welcome your participation, and I look forward to seeing how we can collaborate here to initiate a secure and prosperous future for all of humankind. Thank you.